And that's the thing is like, we're trying to take that and go towards the moon with Superfly, but like, that's what it is. Like, it's that special moment. Just like I had said a couple times here, like, I'm trying to create events that are family friendly to where the plus ones and the kids can come and have a good time. Technically, I personally think that today is absolutely the best opportunity for positive car culture in the world, because we're able to do the things that we're able to do.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Rubberneck Radio. This week, I got the chance to sit down and talk with John Dunlap, the man behind the scenes for many car events such as Canton Cars Coffee, Cars of the Stars, Minerva Motor Club, and Superfly. This was a really cool episode because John shares with us what it takes to run these events and shares his passion for the local car culture. I also want to promote the next Superfly event as it returns to the Polsky parking deck in Akron on July 19th. To secure your spot for the show and learn more about Superfly and other events in Northeast Ohio, head over to minervamotorclub.com. And with that, let's get into our episode with John Dunlap. So the first thing that I want to ask you is your stats. How many cups of coffee and how many donuts do you think you've handed out over the years?
I would say probably as many grains of sand on a very small beach.
That's fair.
We generally average between 8 and 12 dozen donuts every single event. Now we're at, I want to say 15 or 16 events times 6 years. So probably into the 4-digit range at this point.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot of donuts. That's a lot of coffee beans getting sent out there. But ever since I moved to Northeast Ohio and kind of got into the car scene, like, you've always been there at Canton Cars and Coffee and, other events, which we'll get into, like Cars of the Stars and Superfly and stuff. I'm curious to know, like, where did this all start? How did you get involved with Cars and Coffee, and what made you to decide to really try to hold together these events and cultivate car culture here in Canton and really Stark County in Northeast Ohio?
Yeah, so I'm just a lifetime car guy, incredibly passionate about that. And I have definitely spent more money doing less quality things in my life. So I physically accidentally got caught up with all the Canton Cars and Coffee with its first iteration, which was literally, a friend of mine who happened to have the email list of like 48 old guys with weird cars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a cool thing. It's actually kind of, similar to the things that I really enjoy about what Superfly is at its core. But also kind of what I saw there was being a void of appreciation, because so many of the mainstream things are very much like Camaros and Mustangs and Corvettes. And then like people get their blinders on, and then you'd go to, Canton Cars and Coffee, which happened to be 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on some random Sunday, because they would look at the weather on Tuesday or Wednesday and be like, oh yeah, we can do this. And so I was like, can you guys get a schedule so I can know what's going on? And so we were kind of going back and forth with that. And Mike, I talked to him a bunch of times. And, when we started to grow, he created a Facebook page a long, long time ago. No, I think I might've created the Facebook page. I don't know. I think we created the Facebook page and there was like 60 people on it and like 54 of them were me. Right. Where we just trying to do it. And then eventually, awkwardly enough, they had a German car show that, cause John from Royal Docks is a Porsche guy. Mm-hmm. So they had like some sort of Porsche PCA/German car feature at Royal Docks. And I went because I'm a Porsche guy as well. And I was like, and I saw Mike there because Mike, who has Mercedes and Porsches, he was there. And I was like, Mike, you got to meet John. You guys could do something. And at that point he goes, John, like, you have much more energy for this. You should just do it. and you should take this on and you should organize it.
Here you
And
go.
I'm like, oh, I was just trying to connect you. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to like create something. So then I kind of was like, okay, well, I'll just be the guy in the background, right? And then jokingly, that's kind of my email handle. I don't know if you saw that or on my signature. It says like John Dunlap, like barista in chief for
Mm-hmm.
Canton Cars Coffee. I didn't tell anybody it was me. Everybody just thought I was a guy handing out coffee and hanging
Right.
out at the tent. And so that's how that worked. And we were just trying to do some good in the community, and really, praise the cars that are weird, to be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
the non-traditionally popular cars. And because of that, I saw an opportunity that I was starting from nothing, so I could grow it organically. So I did not grow for growth's sake. So like we would bring people in that we thought had a similar mindset. And then once they had a good time and they saw some weird stuff and they saw, a 59 Auto Bianchi right next to a Ferrari F40, right next to whatever, a Miata next to whatever. And everybody's perfectly cool with everybody's car. And so then they're like, oh, okay, they see it. And then they bring somebody of a like mindset. And then all of a sudden that's how we grew organically. And I still haven't tried to grow that for growth's sake. Because if we do everything right from a marketing standpoint, we would be too busy at any single event as it is.
Yeah. And I think your mindset, like you and I kind of share the same mindset of, seeing all the weird stuff, seeing the F40s next to the Miatas and stuff. Like I remember as a kid, growing up in Southern California, my dad would take me to like a cruise night in Escondido, and it was all 50s, 60s, 70s, American muscle, American cars. And then
shoe boxes.
yeah, all the shoe boxes.
Yeah.
And then like in the side parking lots, you would have, some JDM stuff where the kids were like, we're not really like in this crowd, but we want to show off our cars. And I think that's kind of one of the
There isn't
greater
a place for them.
Yeah. And I think there's been like a greater shift just in car culture in general, where everybody wants to be around everybody because at the end of the day, everybody's like-minded and like, let's celebrate whatever it is.
Yeah. And that was what I really got to witness firsthand. And I was like, oh, I have an opportunity to grow this organically and make sure that we have people that appreciate everything. And you'll have people bring in, it's not a value statement. You know what I mean? Like, and there are definitely, I'm not saying that we don't have anybody at any of our events that use, cars as status symbols, but like, that's just not a pillar of who I am. And so if you can kind of provide a passionate, safe space for the misfits that aren't accepted anywhere else or not really, they're not accepted, but they're not celebrated anywhere else. And then somebody brings an AutoZam AZ1 and they know it's quirky. I mean, nobody that buys an AutoZam AZ1 doesn't know it's quirky, but,
Yeah.
but they'll show up and they'll get wild appreciation from everybody. And that's something I didn't personally see. And I come, my mom and dad, I always say that, I was doomed from the start because my mom likes Porsches. She had a 914 back in the day. And then my dad has had a bunch of Camaros, including one that he daily drives. It has, I think, 180,000 miles on it now that we got certified used, like
good
6,000.
for him.
Yeah. So like but that's what we do. And like my Corvette currently, it's broken. It's a little bit like this. The front frame rails are a little bit crazy.
Oh, no.
Yeah. A Silverado decided that red thing that said stop was an option and T-boned me at 40.
That's a
plus
bummer.
Yeah. Not ideal.
Oh.
But I'm battling insurance right now. And then we're going to get it handled and back on the road here still this year. I'm going to have Taylor and Tyler, fix it up for me. So, and again, that's one of those things that's like counterintuitive. Anybody else looks at that and it's like, I got that car with 9,000 miles on it. It has 100 and almost 40,000 miles on it. Everybody's like, write it off. And I'm like, yeah, but like I dated my wife in that car. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my oldest learned to drive stick in that car. My wife pretty much learned to drive stick in that car. So it's like, nah, it'll stay as a racing simulator in the shop at a minimum.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but
100%.
it's a counterintuitive thing for most people. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, I was actually wondering, I haven't been out to too many Cars and Coffees, this year, just, schedule wise and stuff. And I was like, man, like I haven't seen John's Corvette, out and about. So there's your answer.
yeah.
That's a bummer. So kind of tell me a little bit more about the organizational side, and we can get into the Cars and Coffee. We can get into something bigger. I know Superfly is coming up here in the next couple weeks, on the 19th, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me the ins and outs and the X's and O's of what does it take to put on like a Cars and Coffee and then jump into that, because I got to imagine, getting the space in the organization for Superfly, that's got to be more insane.
Yeah, it's a lot. And again, like it's that counterintuitive thing, we're doing it for the passion's sake of it. And just like I kind of alluded to earlier, the passion side of it, if I go in and I spend $250 and nobody shows up, or if I go in and spend $250, now if I don't spend $250, if I lose $250 on a day that 200 people show up, but I didn't sell anything, I've spent $250 on less worthwhile things. So
100%.
At that point, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just looking at it like, oh, okay, well, like I would prefer to be in the black or have it sustain itself.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, like, I understand that I just put a party on for 200 people that like enjoyed their time and they want to come back the next time. So overall, like I would prefer that, like I said, that we are able to physically be able to, support itself, but I've spent way more on a lot less worthwhile things. But like for a long time, that was just how that is. I mean, I was just literally subsidizing it with my personal bank account. At this point, it's very rare if we don't, at least break even. But I will say that it is not nothing. It is not zero. Like literally just on Saturday with all the rain, I cut back a lot. We normally are pushing about 12.5 to 15 gallons now of coffee. I cut back to 5 gallons ordered because I had that feeling that rain was going to come in the middle, and it did. And we dumped like over 2.5 gallons. So like even that, is a crazy thing, but it's, you have to figure out when you get to that point, and we're at that precipice where we can keep it at these venues where we can have 200 and 300 and 400 cars. And that's still a hard venue to organize because then you have to make sure that everybody's policed and everything else. But I think that also goes back to curating that audience the right way. And since we did it organically, there's not incredibly large number of people that like to, do silly things when they're leaving and everything else like that. So, but like, the thing that kind of turned my flashlight on or whatever, the light bulb moment for me was whenever we did the 25th anniversary of the strip. I had enough room that I was like, oh, I can do what I want. Like I can throw everything at this from a marketing standpoint and see what we get. And we had 595 cars come out.
Wow.
And that was the first time that like we had approached even past 400, and we almost, 50% more than that. So that was like, oh, okay. Like I'm kind of okay at this social media thing, when you have the tools to do it. So, and then I was like trying to figure out what we were looking to do. And in that moment when we were looking at what to do to kind of grow it, because so many of the events that we go to, I kind of like look at them from a logistical standpoint. And it's just like, oh, well, they could have done this. They could have done this. They could have done this. And I'm like, I hate people that complain about things without offering a solution. And then it was like, oh, the solution is for me to just do it. Like, I know how to do it. I come from a background with my family. Like, they've put on prom shows. They did a prom show in Northeast Ohio for probably a decade, to where they partnered with like the largest dress, retail establishment in the state, which is Henry's Cloud 9. And they physically they would, use the ambassadors from the professional photography studio as models. And then they would do all of these things. We would have full on fashion shows. So you had the full on fashion shows, you had, all the stuff with the, limousines and everything. And all of those little event moments was like, oh, okay, that's how we did that. We did this better. We did this better. We elevated this. And that's kind of what we looked at to begin with. And it's like, oh, this is something that we can do. So right about that moment where we were trying to look at that next thing and like, are we going to grow big? Are we going to grow whatever? Because as silly as it is, Canton Cars and Coffee is very geographically constrained.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, like we can't go much further outside of Stark County and have a Canton Cars and Coffee branded thing.
Right.
So that was kind of one of those things. It's like, well, if we're looking at doing another organization, or if we're looking at doing any of the other things, well, at that moment, my Shelby friend Jim Hall called, and he's like, hey, do you think that, because we're both from Minerva, Ohio, and he's like, we have an old timey movie theater downtown called the Roxy. And he's like, do you think that if we would get all of our car buddies together, that we could sell out a showing of the movie Ford versus Ferrari in the theater for a fundraiser? And it's like 183 seats. And I'm like, well, probably, but like, I don't do movies. I do car shows. Like I do elevated automotive events. Right. And so then I was like, I thought about it for the weekend, and I was like, let's do something special. Let's make it so that way the plus ones and the families and the wives or the husbands, depending on, we definitely have had car people that are girls that have husbands that are like, I am not interested. I'm going to get in my Prius and drive away. And that's, so not to be sexist about it, but like all of the plus ones, you needed to have something to do that. And then a pillar of who I am as a person is trying to kind of educate people and broaden people's horizons and make sure that we have a positive impact on everybody, so that way they can appreciate crazy cars. Because that's the only way, if we do that when they're young, that's the only way that we can keep this car culture and hobby alive.
Yep.
We got to do that. So I was like, we should have food trucks. We should have live music. We'll shut down the town. I said, and then let's pull favors with friends, but like, let's pull favors with friends that have insane cars. Yeah. And, one of Jim's friends and contacts had actually the sound car from the Ford versus Ferrari. So anytime, oh yeah. So anytime in Ford versus Ferrari, anytime you hear a Ford GT40, you actually hear our friend Ted's car, which
That's insane.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do Ford versus Ferrari, but we're going to use Ted's car as literally the poster car. And I can send you the picture of the poster for that. And then we physically went and we tried to basically have all Fords and all Ferraris and try to see what we could get. Right.
Yeah.
And as our first attempt, like a soft opening, we were like, well, we're going to go on a day that this town is already shut down for another car show in the morning. And then that way we can kind of not have everybody do all the fuss for us, and we'll make it an evening show. Right. And so we went through this whole thing, and then we were like, we had our very first year, we had people come in from, I think, 5 states, and we had 6 Ford GT40s. I think we had 3 Ford GTs. And then I always feel bad when I get to the Italians, because it's like, oh yeah, and all the other Italian cars, all the but we had like
the red cars.
16 or 17 Ferraris, and it was like something that no one had ever thought would ever have happened in small town Minerva. And it was also, to go back to mindset, it really was one of those things that was telling, because as I'm telling people about it to gauge if they would be the right kind of person to come, they would either be like, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Who would ever go to Minerva? It's like, okay, cool. We don't, that's a mindset thing. We're good.
Thank you.
And also all those people had cars that we didn't want there anyway,
Yeah.
to be frank.
Yeah.
So, but like, then we'd get to the people with like Lamborghini Miuras, and we'd get, Shelby GT 350s and 500s and all these things. And they're like, oh, that's a really cool idea. And I was like, it's an old timey American, a jewelry box, basically.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we did with that was we staged the premium crazy cars off site and started with a procession into town. And whenever you hear those crazy cars that you never ever see in general, but then you hear them and you see them roll into town, it blew some minds. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah,
that's again, so cool.
Elevated things.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the next step for like car shows, and it's not just parking lot, car. It's an event, and there's the Porsche Airwater out in California, and there's a bunch of obviously Pebble.
Yes.
It's a whole event, and that's the next step of where this stuff is going to. So yeah, I wish I was there for that one. 100% seeing all the cool cars and the Fords and Ferraris.
The cool thing was, because we were attaching it to everything, we spent hundreds of hours on that show, right? And it was 100% charity. We got absolutely quote unquote nothing out of it other than putting on a good show. And we were able to actually there's on the website, that on our page, we actually have like a couple pictures, like here's a before and after of what we were able to do. And then we were actually able to kind of fund a lot of renovations for the Roxy. So,
cool.
But like we averaged, it was either 800 to 1,000 hours for 4 years we would do on these things. Wow. Because we were trying to curate. So that was the first one, was just Ford versus Ferrari. Then we did a grand opening Ford versus Ferrari, and we went even bigger. And at that point we tried to implement like enthusiast auto corral, enthusiast parking, and just to kind of grow it out and try to figure out those growing pains, so that way we knew how we could push what we could push and make sure that there's more people there. Because as soon as we get more people there, then we have more people on the bricks, then we have more people, then we have more spectators and all that other stuff. And then the cool thing about having it attached to a movie theater is that then you can have it movie based. In my opinion, it was cool because then you could do movie based. So we did Ford versus Ferrari, Gone in 60 Seconds. Oh. And then a good friend of mine, Doug Tabbitt, is actually the current record holder for the Cannonball Run from Red Ball. Yeah. So Red Ball Garage in New York City to the Portofino Hotel out in LA. It's oh gosh, he's going to kill me. 25:39, I think. 25 hours and 39 minutes, I think. 37 minutes, something like that.
That's cruising.
But so that was cool though. And also it's a movie. So then last year we did, for the 2024 iteration, we did Cannonball Run as the movie. And we had the largest and most significant gathering of transcontinental racing vehicles ever assembled. We literally had like 1903 Curve Dash Olds, which they had done a transcontinental crossing in that. We had 1905 Franklins, all the way up through the actual Ferrari Daytona from Brock Yates that he actually did the Cannonball in. Not one like it, the one.
Yeah.
So we had cars and people coming in from 17 states. And then we actually had to open up our website to international orders because somebody was coming from Belgium.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it was like, that was cool. And since then, we have offered that to other museums and stuff like that. We had 7 museums send us cars just for display for that kind of stuff. And we offered that to museums as like a traveling, exhibit basically. And we actually had a couple of them take us up on it, and a couple of them, there's already one of them right now that has a cannonball feature right now. And one of them I think is going to start in August.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing how that grew from, hey, let's try this out, to museums sending in cars, dudes from Belgium sending in cars.
yeah.
Going back to kind of organizing this stuff, like what are some of the major hurdles that you have to address when you're thinking about putting on a show or putting on an event?
A lot of it's like infrastructure. So, I always try to look at the metrics of how we're doing on the response side of Facebook, basically events. Because for a long time, that's the only place that we basically put anything out for. And for my metrics for almost the whole time, there were a few outliers every now and then, but for my metrics almost the whole time, it's about 50% cars per responses. So if I know that my venue only holds 350 cars at one point, which means that we can probably do like 400, 425 from filtering in and out and stuff. I need to know that my venue will hold that. And I need to know that I need to not be pushing over 900 responses, right? Because if not, then I'm going to get into a scenario where, my marketing directly affected an overpopulation and a crowding and an overloading of the infrastructure. So you definitely have to watch that. But like everybody likes restrooms, as dumb as that is. They like restrooms. And if you can offer any of the other amenities, so we obviously do, coffee and donuts, but at Cars and Coffee, but for like the Superfly and all that stuff, we're going to be offering full on, drink carts and beer carts and everything else like that, as well as ice cream, as well as, we're going to have 5 or 6 food options, so that's kind of the big thing. And we're trying to add that little extra. So, when we have our Cars and Coffee at our home base of Royal Docks, it's amazing because they have a premium events facility and we're able to put 5 or 6 cars inside. You know what I mean? So we can do a quick little feature of any kind of car that we're wanting to kind of highlight at that moment. So that's like something that's not normal. So that's something, and that's what we try to do, is we try to have one thing that's not normal at everything that we do, to where if it's not going to be there and we can't have that, it needs to be a compelling venue. So like when we went to Micah's, that's a compelling venue because it's cool to be on the farm in the country kind of thing. But and also it's like a perfectly flat, low car friendly place. So we can make it all work. And I was really nervous and kind of honestly thankful about the rain that came through, because I didn't touch that event and we had over 1,000 responses. And going back to my metrics, if we would have had sunshine, it would have been too many cars.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have had any place to put them.
Yeah, that would have been, according to your metrics, that would have been like 500 cars plus, in and out traffic. And, I really like, from a photographer's standpoint, I really like going out to Micah's because, there's the NSXs and, whatever else cool that comes out. And, there's like a couple cars that are strategically placed. There's his cars that are strategically placed. And then same thing too at the Royal Docks Cannery, whenever there's something on display, like inside the brewery, I mean, like how do you not take a shot of that?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, we're trying to take that and go towards the moon with Superfly, but like, that's what it is. Like, it's that special moment. I want people to have that Instagrammable moment where they can see it. You know what I mean? Like, you have that photographer's eye, but if you physically make it so that way, people that don't have a photographic eye and they're taking pictures and they're uploading them, and then their friends are like, wait, what the heck? You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. You got cars inside a brewery. Like, it doesn't. So that's kind of where the thing is. Like, you need to have that thing that's not just like, oh, we're doing a car show. Not that there's anything wrong with anybody's car shows, and I don't want to say that. but like we are definitely not the show up and see only a row of shoebox Chevys and only a row of Chevelles and only a row of Camaros and somebody walking around with a 50-50 bucket. Like that's just not who we are. And that's by design. We're trying to make sure that we have something different, something genuine to kind of go into the future with. And that's kind of everything that we've always done, is just like the next iteration of what I think and where I think we can grow as a brand, but as a culture. I mean, that's the big thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things that you guys did, and I don't know exactly when the page was created, but implementing the Cars and Coffee's like fan page where people can upload their photos. Where I'm bringing my camera. I know there's a bunch of other dudes bringing their camera, and then also people too just snapping photos of on their phone and being able to share that event and allow guys like me and gals like me to be able to, express some artistic photography and really find, fun photos and be able to share those photos. And, people get fired up seeing those photos of their car. Like I remember a couple weeks ago, I was over at Mays Valley. Now I always bring my kid with me. And so, my focus there is to make sure that he sees cool cars and, he's having a good time. And if I get, a couple cool photos, cool, great, but I'm not going to like drag him around just so I can shoot pictures and be selfish. But I snapped a photo of some lady's Accord that she had slammed and, did a couple things too and got a cool photo. And she's like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for like shooting my car." I'm like,
because no one ever does.
It's my pleasure. And that's what's fun for me.
Yeah. And that's what's fun for me too. Even, Sean Russell, you might know him. He's got that purple Mark IV.
Mm-hmm.
He was absolutely ecstatic and like in disbelief that I was going to let him park his car inside. To be featured, because he's got it's slammed, it's purple, it's crazy. Yes, we're gonna celebrate that. Like, yeah, absolutely. And so, but that's the kind of thing. Like, they are not used to, and that's honestly. So that's I'm only recently the caretaker of Superfly, right? Only since the end of 23. But like, it started in 1999 from people similar to the people in the JDM section in Southern California, like we were talking about. They wanted to be a part of something, but they would go, and all of the now boomers really would look down their nose, and it didn't have a V8 Chevy, and take that punk car, punk kid, and get out of here. So like that's very much so how it started. And in 1999, they were the guys that had, 95 Civics and stuff like that. And they just weren't accepted anywhere. So then they were able to actually be a source of the culture. And I remember getting driven there because I got my license in 2001. And so I remember being driven there because like I had heard about this crazy thing where there's all these cars that show up in, the valley. And then we were at Spaghetti Warehouse for a long, long time. And then I watched the last night that we were at Spaghetti Warehouse was because somebody with a Civic did a burnout. And so I was like, so seeing that happen through all the iterations, and then Liam did a great job growing it through the years and making it what it was. And, seeing all of those things and trying to learn from all of those mistakes, or not really mistakes, circumstances, and take those lessons into growing something and doing it, quote unquote, the right way, and making sure that there's accountability, because that's everybody that like accountability is a huge thing.
Like, how do you implement that? Because obviously you see all the guys on social media in their Mustangs or, Chargers or whatever, leaving an event, doing burnouts and, peeling out, leaving the event. Like, how do you mitigate that as an organizer?
So there's I mean, we can constantly try to implement it, and we try to yell it, and we try to, honestly, there's a lot of times where I'm the boomer shaking my fist and get off my lawn, don't do stuff. So there's definitely that. And some guys, like, they have a giant problem with it. And that's like, even a few weeks ago, we had people that were gathering at the edge where everybody was leaving. And I was like, I said, I don't care if you sit here, but like, and listen to cars leave, but go down there. Yeah. Like, get away. And they're like, well, I'm standing here. I'm like, yeah, but don't. So like, because they're going to have to go further out into traffic just to be able to see around you. So that's already not safe. B, when you're right on them, it's going to inspire them to push that pedal just 15% worse.
Well, and especially if everybody's doing this.
Yeah. So there's definitely that to it. So we've been able, my best friend Matt, he always says I should teach a master class in social engineering, aka peer pressure. We try to just make the best environment to where everybody is encouraged to make the right decisions, basically. That's on the cruise inside, because there's minimal accountability until, myself, or I'll send Brian over, and Brian's real good about getting in someone's face, basically, and be like, calm down, dude. Like, so that's kind of how we try to do that. And the other thing is, though, we have inherently a good ratio of people with great mindsets at Cars and Coffee. In every group of people, you're going to have, I always say, you're going to have asshats and you're going to have gems, right? It's unavoidable. But the benefit of me growing that from absolutely nothing, purely organically, is that we have a lot more gems than asshats. So I always say our asshat to gem ratio is phenomenal for Cars and Coffee.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, it hurts everybody, because I remember when I first moved out here, they were having little events, get-togethers, meetups at the Myers Lake parking lot where the Big Lots is and the Roses and stuff. And then it got shut down because you've got your asshats doing burnouts, leaving the parking lot. And so, one person's actions impacts everybody.
Yeah. But there was no accountability. So they were doing it in a way that they were just trying. The people that were organizing it were doing it in a very altruistic way. They were just trying to find a place and an owner of a lot that would let them hang out.
Yeah.
And then one person, because they're opportunists with absolutely no accountability, one person could get them thrown out of anywhere.
Yep.
And that was honestly a big concern whenever we were looking at taking on Superfly, because there had been, not necessarily with Superfly, but in general, the nighttime car culture had transitioned more to a takeover mentality where everybody's super, honed in on just them hooning around, and they want to have fun in their own way and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't even want to say that's fine and good, because it's not. The takeover mentality is not. It's the bane of car culture.
It's awful. It's awful.
Everybody gets a bad name for it. But that's that accountability thing that I had mentioned. Whenever you're signing up for Superfly, we have your name, we have your address, we have a picture of your car. And because of that, I mean, I'm not saying we're going Big Brother about it, but because of that, people understand that, like, we are building the future and we're building a safe space that's relatively shenanigan free.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. And that's the hardest thing from an internal struggle on my part, is we are all car people, right? We all, you hear a Mustang or you hear a Rotary or whatever, and the hair on the back of your neck stands up a little bit. You're like, oh, are they going to get in it? Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, looking around, man.
Get the dog ears up, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, we all love that. We all love cars in motion specifically. But like, we have to do it in the right place at the right time, and leaving a car show is not the right time. Basically,
Yeah.
it's the right now, and hear this. I want everybody to hear this. Like, 100% do not piddle away from a car show, because that is no fun.
Yeah.
Get into it,
Yeah.
but like, don't get too into it.
Yeah.
Take off in a spirited way, hang on to that gear a little bit more, and then let it shift. I mean, I wouldn't redline it. I mean, I kind of would. I have before. Which again, that's a hard thing to juggle, but like, you have to do what's right for everybody all the time. And
yeah.
Taking out a kid because you got into it too much, and then you stabbed it and then let off and stabbed it, and you take out a kid, like, that ruins everybody's day.
Yeah, nobody's having a good time off of that one. I want to. So we've kind of talked about Superfly. Last year was the first time having it come back, and that was at the Hall of Fame Village. I attended it. It was awesome. Well done to you and Thanks. To your team. And then now this year there's going to be 4 total events. Is that correct? So, because I was looking at the social media before we got on, and so there was the one in May. Yeah, and then there's one coming up in a couple weeks, and that's up in Akron, correct? Yeah, the Polsky deck, and that's where it got really big. So we also have August 30th as a date at a mystery location, and then September 20th is not on anything, but we literally just had a meeting that was very, very productive today, and I think that we're going to be able to partner with a national organization and expand our region further. So we're looking at partnering with them for an event in Pennsylvania. Wow. So that would allow us the opportunity to really look at a national expansion. And my goal, again, not that there's anything wrong with Radwood. I like Radwood as a format, but I want to do something that's more compelling than Radwood. We're wanting to do something special, something festival like. Everybody is digging the vibes that we're able to curate around cars, even if it's not car related, you know what I mean? So this year specifically at the last event, the innovation that we did was we brought in the RC drift cars, and they had a blast, you know what I mean? They set up all kinds of crazy stuff. They had like a miniature skate park and everything else like that. They don't have a place. They aren't celebrated anywhere else, you know what I mean, other than in their very small corner of their world. So it's like, if we can bring that out to expand their world and ours, then that's phenomenal. And we even told some people about it, and we had at least 3 people that I know of brought their cars, and they did it too. And they just hopped in. Whoa. So it's like, that's cool. That's something we can do. And we're literally spinning wheels, but we're not doing it with full-size cars and getting everybody in trouble. And then we brought in Micah and Finney's, they brought in pinball machines, right? Yeah, that was awesome. So we're actually going to be we're going to one up everything again. We're for the July event. So pinball's coming back. I'm working really hard to get a full sim rig there. That way we can have like a full sim rig. I have somebody bringing in a handful of CRT TVs. With PS1s and N64s, so we can play GoldenEye and Mario Kart and all, Gran Turismo 2, like it's 1999, honestly. Yeah, that's awesome. Where are you looking to get your inspiration for bringing these other amenities in? So I'm really just looking at what hasn't been done. And, obviously you can't do anything that's not been done, or everything that's not been done, but there's also very much, Radwood was started in like 2016, 2017-ish, something like that.
And the era that they were focusing on, 80s and 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're about a decade later. If we really focus on the 90s and 2000s, I think that everybody that has an appreciation for the 80s is like, oh, we had a really good time in the 80s, or it was a fun thing, da da da. But like, I don't think anybody thinks that we peaked in the 80s, right?
No.
I personally think that, technically, I personally think that today is absolutely the best opportunity for positive car culture in the world, because we're able to do the things that we're able to do. But in my mind, in my soul, in every fiber of my being, I feel like 2007, 2008 was like peak vibes, right? Everybody was, how many times in that era did you go to the strip and there were 200 cars at the strip just hanging out? If you went, to Superfly, if you went any of these, and you had, everybody was adding bigger turbos and blow off valves and underglow. And that just, it was a very dramatic time, Wings West, that era, Nopi Nationals, all that stuff. And that's really kind of what we're throwing back to. We're really throwing back to that vibe of, if we were 39 in 2007, what could we have done? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what, we didn't have the opportunity. We were living it and we were having fun in 2007, but like we were attending other people's stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, what can
definitely.
we do?
And I didn't have anything cool. I had a dumpy F-150 that was an old work truck. So
yeah. So then you're going to see stuff, but now you can go and show off stuff,
Yeah.
or participate in some way. And that's kind of the thing, is like, we didn't have, as stupid as it is, like even the notion of video games back then, I can get on the computer and we can play with people all over the world. That's great. That's phenomenal. We're more connected than ever. But in doing that and having only that screen time and having remote viewing and everything, and even this, honestly, we're not together.
Right.
We're connected, but we're not physically together, right?
Right.
But like when I was in junior high and high school, if you wanted to have a video game night with your buddies, you brought 2 TVs or 3 TVs and 4 PlayStations and splitters. And I'm sure you did it. You put the cardboard up and the blankets and made
no cheating, no screen looking.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So like that is a pivotal moment in my memory, in my life. And like, it was such a wonderful time. Looking back, from a logistical standpoint, it's a giant pain in the ass. Can you imagine doing that today? Can you imagine be like, oh yeah. You wouldn't want to
going over to Johnny's to go play video games.
Yeah.
Like you're
not going to do it. So, but then in that regard though, you don't have that incidental stuff before and after when you're setting it up and you're, I don't know, when one person has too much gas or, you don't have that motion of going through and interacting. So if we can provide those, compelling venues with compelling events and compelling amenities and stuff that you haven't seen in public, if we can have a full on freaking arcade of cool video games and pinballs, and sim rig like that, I feel like that's a pretty cool thing, and that's what I'm looking to do. It's like, well, what would I like to do? And then the funniest part is like, I can't go do all of those things, but during the event, because but then I get to watch other people do it, and that brings me incidental joy, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, that's so cool, man. I'm excited to see what Superfly looks like here in the next couple weeks. I'm going to check my calendar. I want to make sure that I don't have.
Oh yeah, you got to come there. So did you go back in the day to Superfly at Polsky?
No. So I moved out here in 2021. So like this whole scene is like still pretty relatively new to me. My wife is from,
if you were dealing with post-COVID stuff.
Yeah. So we, I had actually kind of gotten out kind of gotten out of cars in like college. I was too busy with college and,
Yeah.
having a good
Learning.
time and learning. Yeah, sure. I did plenty of that.
AKA party.
But, no, I really got back into it after attending a car show in Denver. And then not too long after that, I was looking for stuff to do. And I was like, man, like, I forget how fun it was just to go check out cars and be
Oh, yeah.
around them and see them cruise it around. So I'm still relatively new to the area and new to the scene out here.
Well, stick with me. We got some fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the other cool thing is, you are a perfect example. We only know each other because you happen to have come out to, one of the events at Royal Docks. You know what I mean? And that scenario, that's kind of another one of the big reasons why we're putting together the Minerva Motor Club. And the Minerva part of the Minerva Motor Club has nothing to do with the town. Oh, sorry, I hit my mic. Has nothing to do with the town. It has everything to do with the goddess. So it's like the wise and all-knowing approach to car culture in specifically the area. So that's kind of one of those things. If you go to our website, you're able to see a calendar of events, and like anybody can upload an event there. And so, if 15 people have 15 different events all at the same time and they want somebody else to know about them, they can put them on our website absolutely for free. And I'm trying to figure out a way that we can basically crowdsource that information and aggregation of information, because so many times, and the thing that I like everything. Like I like Corvettes, I like Porsches, I like weird stuff, I like air cooled, I like water cooled, I like rotary. It's weird, it's vast, and it's weird. But so many, like the problem that I see is so many people get in their little silo of their passion, and Corvette people only like Corvettes. Then they only like their Corvette, and 55 shoebox Chevy people. I literally at one point heard someone that had a 57 Chevy poo-pooing on somebody that had a 56 Chevy. And I'm like, A,
that's
same
insane.
Team, guys.
Yeah.
Same team. B, how can you be that much in your silo that you're poo-pooing on somebody with something that is effectively 95% of your car?
Yeah.
Like, so
what are we talking about here?
Yeah. But then more on the safe side and less bad side, they get into those worlds to where a lot of the American classic car people only know where American classic car events are. A lot of the JDM people only know where JDM events are. A lot of the slammed people only know where slammed events are. So like there wasn't a place that had everything. And even when you go to like Cruise and Times or whatever, they have very much a genre of cars that they're celebrating. You know what I mean? So if we go through and celebrate everything and nothing simultaneously, then I think that's how we are able to grow. And then somebody like you who might not be into classic American cars, then you can look on there and you'd be like, oh, well, I have time today. The stuff I'm interested in isn't today, but look, this other car show is 40 minutes from me. That I can go look at that. You know what I mean? And you would have never seen that otherwise. Same thing with, that opportunity to educate and expand, knowledge and bandwidth and everything. Our next event next weekend for Cars and Coffee on the 12th, we're actually doing an Ohio Region CCCA, which is the Classic Car Club of America.
Yeah.
Which is all pre-World War II coach-built cars.
Wow.
So nothing against Ford Model A's.
Yeah.
Nothing against them. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
These are Cadillacs. These are Packards. These are Bentleys. These are, any of those other things that were coach built and premium and top shelf. And that's kind of like a whole thing. And I'm actually on the board for the Ohio Region CCCA and trying to impart a younger mentality and a more inclusive mentality, because they have a systemic problem where a certain number of people are like, just like I said, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with Model A's. There's a certain percentage of people that use cars as status symbols, and they're like looking down their noses at the Model A's and at the modern cars and at the everything else.
Yeah.
So and also, like, without education, you might look at two Packards that are both from 1934, and one of them is a $500,000 car and one of them is a $15,000 car. And you might have assumed that they are both $500,000 cars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people in their 30s and 40s, they are overwhelmed because they either got some, out-snooted at one point, where they got turned off from somebody that they interacted with from a personality standpoint, or they just have absolutely no experience with it. And because of that, they assume everything is a Duesenberg.
Yeah. And I think that touches on a really interesting point where car culture is, because I get the sense that, as the old boomers, the old guys in the 60s, 70s muscle cars and, the stuff pre-war, a lot of those collectors and a lot of those car owners aren't getting any younger. And, it really falls on the shoulders of those guys to try and educate younger guys in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even younger to appreciate, what these older cars meant now or mean now and then meant back in the day. Do you see that becoming like an issue where, younger guys as the older car owners, unfortunately age out, or, they start getting too old to come out? Do you see those cars like going away from car culture?
So I absolutely see that as a problem. And that's one of my, a pillar of who I am, is to try to increase that education. I actually, little known fact, I was actually the director for a brief moment at the Canton Classic Car Museum, because we wanted to push a younger agenda. We wanted to physically get more people in there. We wanted to breathe new life into that. So, like, I was able to get them to see some things, and we were able to do lighting and paint and stuff like that and refresh it. So that way, whenever a younger person went in, it wasn't so icky and dungeony feeling. You know what I mean? But like, absolutely, like 100%, if we do not get young people involved, everybody, like Doug he's famous for having Hank say, "My Corvette is best Corvette," right? Everybody thinks their car is a little more special than it probably is, right? But there are legitimately special cars out there. There are not enough spaces in the museums that are going to be ongoing, that there are not enough spaces to house all of the special cars, let alone all of the absolutely pretty non-special cars.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a thing. And also, just like I had said a couple times here, like, I'm trying to create events that are family friendly, to where the plus ones and the kids can come and have a good time. We bring, we always have donuts that have pink icing, the strawberry icing.
My kid loved it.
And if we're at Royal Docks, we always have the Crayola, crayons and coloring books. Yep. Because we want them to feel included. We want them to be seen, and we want them to be like, oh, I want to go to a car show with Dad, or I'm going to go to a car show with Mom. Because that's the only way that we get them wanting to go to a car show. And that's the only way that they see stuff. And then they're like, oh yeah. And then as they get to be a teenager, they're like, well, instead of having an Accord, could I have a Camaro? Like, could I save my money and get a Camaro? Like, that's an option. You know what I mean? But like, we have to fan that flame, because even in the people in their 40s and 30s, there's a very minimal interaction, because I think that there's such a bad perception of the cars. But like, specifically coach built cars, they all had giant engines that were relatively capable. So you could get like a 1932 Packard and drive on the highway during normal speeds in 2025.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
But true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually got to spend, which, pinch, knock, whatever. It was wonderful. I got to spend some time in a 29 Duesenberg Model J, which was an open top touring car that they were just given rides in. And this thing was absolutely beautiful, absolutely perfect, wonderful, phenomenal, great. And my buddy Brian, he was in the back, and he was like being a little kid, right? All this, like, oh my gosh, look at this ashtray. I'm like, Brian, go ahead and you just look up value of a Duesenberg Model J. Yeah. And then I see him on his phone, and then I see him do this, and he's like, I'm not touching anything. But like, that was the thing. Like, we were able to experience it, and like, we were keeping up with normal traffic. It was perfectly fine. And then there was that moment where like, oh my God, I'm in an expensive car. I can't touch anything. I'm going to sit here like this. And it's like, you should be respectful of the car, but like, also it's a car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so
it's meant to be used.
Yeah. So we have to have that balance of like accessibility to where we're going to have to be able to use it. But also appreciation. And that doesn't happen without sharing the experiences of the older cars, which is, like I said, what we're going to try to do here, even on July 12th. We're going to have all those crazy old, phenomenal coach built cars inside and outside. But
that's cool, man. I'm gonna definitely check that one out. Because I look at the older folks that are driving those cars around, and it's like, man, like, where are these cars going to go? And you hit it right on the head. Like, there's just not enough room in the museums. And the last thing that I want to see is somebody's car that they've built from scratch or built from frame in their garage just go to rust.
Well, and so much of going back to that family aspect, right? So much of what I'm trying to do, again, trying to build that next iteration, is the family friendly stuff. I'm trying to build that so that way you can take your kids and they want to go to car shows, because nothing was set up like that before. All of the kids that were my age and a little bit older that their parents were into like high-end collector cars, they went around because they were either drugged to it against their will, which made bad feelings, and then they didn't want to have good feelings towards it, or they just didn't have to go at all. And there's a very small percentage that were drugged to it against their will, and then they kind of liked it, and then they kind of were there because of experience, and then eventually they became a car person. Sure, there is a small percentage of that, but a lot of them, if they're looking at somebody who's, their dad is, or grandpa, or anybody, their family member is 85 and they have a 15 car collection, most likely they're 60-year-old kids. They might want one, but they don't want a fleet.
Yeah. So, what are you going to do with all that?
So let's say they have 3 kids and 15 cars, and each one of them wants one. That's a collection that's going to get sold off. And whenever we have, this is purely, marketing or market analysis and economics. If we have all of that happen all at the same time, the market for sale is going to be absolutely flooded, which honestly, if nothing changes, it's probably better for me, because I know the old markets and I know the old cars, and I can probably get one really cheap in 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you
going to do?
Yeah. So like, part of me is like, oh, don't change anything, and I'll get cars for pennies on the dollar whenever there's 15 of them sitting there, for sale. No
kidding.
So,
no kidding.
But I don't want that to happen. I want them to be appreciated, and I want them to go on to the next generation. But we have to physically move. I think that we saw a big push towards electric cars, and I think that honestly, I said it from the beginning, I think it's all a ruse, because you can't physically have 50% of people having electric cars. Like, the infrastructure doesn't exist.
No, so the infrastructure doesn't exist. The demand doesn't exist. Like, it's blowing up in everybody's faces.
Yeah, but I think it was blowing up in everybody's faces by demand.
Sure.
Or by design, I should say. I think that they did that on purpose. I think that they pushed the things that they pushed So that way they could push it out and then they could come back. And I think it was an ebb and flow scenario. That's personally my opinion.
Yeah.
That way we can,
and that's a whole nother rabbit hole too.
Yeah. But I think that they can push it to the extreme, realize that the demand wasn't there. And then when they come back, then the hybrids, and I think hybrids are going to be the way of the future.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I think that everything's going to be a hybrid.
I think that's where the smart money is too.
Yeah. So
100%. Well, I appreciate your time, man. This was a really fun one, for me. When I was thinking about starting this podcast, like you were like one of the top guys that I wanted to reach out to. So I appreciate you making this time. If people wanting to learn more, where should they go? Like what's the website, social handles, all that good stuff?
Okay. The big one is minervamotorclub.com. You can get to all of the things from there. We are actually, we're launching a whole different club side of things to where you can get on and use the website for free. You can get on and use the calendar for free. And then you can submit events, you can look at events, and you can actually click them and they can load them right into your phone, right from the thing. Absolutely free. But then also, if you want to be a member of the Minerva Motor Club, we're going to be doing things because we have a pretty good network already set up, and we have drives already planned out. We're going to do private collection tours, private museum tours, lunch drives, dinner drives. We also, I don't think I've spoken about it publicly yet, but we actually got a 13,000 square foot facility and we're renovating a portion of it that was actually a barn, honestly, not even a barn, a stables that's all brick and hand hewn beams from the year 1900.
Wow.
So we're going to take and make that first floor of that really, really cool social area. And then we're going to make it so that way it's a couple bucks a month. Nobody cares about a Starbucks a month, right? And so it's a couple bucks a month. And when you do that, then you, as a member, you're able to get discounts on all of our stuff, all of our events, our shop, our marketplace type stuff. And then in addition to that, we are working on building out a membership portfolio of partners that give discounts to our memberships to
That's
where
huge.
Similar to like AAA, to where you'll be able to go to outside service providers and you'd be like, hey, I'm a Minerva Motor Club member, and they just give you a percentage off or a special rate or a t-shirt with your purchase or whatever.
Right.
So we already have things set up with like Malco to have special pricing for Minerva Motor Club people. Definitive Motorwork has talked about being, I think that they signed on. I will have to nail them down. But like at that point, you're going to be able to go and have premium service at a special rate.
That's awesome. That's the next step, man. That's the next step. I'm excited to see the growth and, hopefully contribute to the growth of Minerva Motor Club and, just the car scene in general. And like I said, man, I appreciate you coming on to the show. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode with John. As you can tell, he's super passionate about growing the local car culture and putting these events on. To learn more and check out the next events, head over to minervamotorclub.com. You can get yourself a membership. To find everything Rubberneck Radio, be sure to check out the links in the episode description and be sure to subscribe here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast player. And until then, we'll see you next time.